We are live.
Okay, so hi everyone. Good morning to all of you. We are very happy to see you all. We've got very good numbers, almost crossed 200. We have, to be precise, 183. Now, this conference or this, I would say it's more of an interaction. We don't want this to be a monologue, but we would want you all to interact, ask any, question that you may have. We have three panelists with us, and I would like to thank all the panelists, Ravi, Madhusudan, and Sudeshna. They are from KNS Partners. They are partners also and dealing with different, IPR sections ranging from patents to trademarks to copyright and other relevant areas as well. I would like to really thank all of you participants for joining us all. And I think this is a very timely, interaction, considering that it is a lockdown period. We are all trying to resolve problems that we have never seen before. It's almost like, if I may safely say, we've become forced entrepreneurs. We may have never thought that the kind of activities we are doing today we would have done anytime, previously. But there are lots of people coming online. A lot of online content is getting generated. People are becoming innovative YouTubers. There are newer apps which are coming up, that is kind of engaging people all the more. And therefore, I think it becomes very important that we safeguard all this IP that is now getting created. I think it's more IP now getting created all digitally. So it's not only protection, but also it's enforcement. It's protection from any misuse, that becomes very important now. I will just be sharing one of my slides. I just prepared for all of you. It's a very basic one. Okay. Can you all see it now?
Yes, please go ahead.
All right, let me just take it on slideshow. Okay, so in this slide, I have decided not to cover anything about IP, so to speak, what is patents, trademarks, copyrights, and GI, trade secrets. I think we will be covering it up in our subsequent seminars also. Also, our panelists today will be sharing much more deeper into, a couple of those topics with all of you. But in this presentation, I thought I'll just give you a quick briefer of what is happening in our country and how do we see startups, especially our government, because there is a lot of vibrancy, in terms of a lot of initiatives being taken by Indian government, considering the fact that our startups are very innovative. Let me just take you to India's Union Budget 2020, which was recently announced by Madam Nirmala Sitharaman. And she mentioned that, I think it was back in 2017 when Honorable Finance Minister then announced patent regime, a special patent regime where he decreased the tax rates from 30% to 10%. And that was with regard to incentivize commercialization of IP from India so that any earnings from, let's say, patents, instead of paying 30% in tax, it has been decreased to 10%. And after that, it's now in 2020 Union Budget that you see IP as a key focus. And that's something very, very good. It actually gives us an indication of how much weightage is Indian government giving to intellectual property and knowledge economy. So here are some bullets that I just pasted as it is verbatim, which says a digital platform to cover, capture seamless application filings and grants. It also talks about technology clusters with regard to designing, fabrication, or validation of proof of concept. It also gives promise from the Indian government that there would be early stage funding to support ideation and development coming from startup section. I think that's something which is very unique in the sense that it is not a reimbursement scheme. For example, you do some kharcha or some sort of a cost that you bear, and after that government will pay you. Nothing of that sort. It's given to startups right at the early stage, so that there is an ideation that can take place. So that is very encouraging. Also, there are talks about genetic medicine and the whole sort of agriculture, the biodiversity, so that newer medication could come up. So clearly, Union Budget has a very strong focus on IPRs. Also, it's just yesterday that we saw announcement from Madam Nirmala Sitharaman about that she wants India to become a hub for raising funds by using intellectual property as as a collateral. I mean, gone are the days when you would just have to show to the banks that you've got this much property or your salary earnings, or with regard to the gold that you possess. Today, you can use intellectual property and put it as a collateral to different banks and can earn money or gain some funds or loans to then further your business potential. Um, so I think another important fact is that we talk about startups. What are they? And we've been defining startups completely differently. Before I think 2017 or 2018. But thereafter, when Government of India came up with the definition of startup, there is a clear focus, as you will see in the second line, which says that startup should be working towards innovation and improvement of existing products. Okay, let me just do a hygiene check. Is my voice audible to all?
Please
Anyone
go
can
ahead.
just send a message. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. So we were discussing about startups and how government defines them as someone that is innovative, that is IP savvy, that is able to create a lot of knowledge output. So this is how we are looking at startups completely differently now. IP filings have been on rise. I mean, this is something so good to see after national IPR policy was released back in 2016 or 17. Thereafter, in less than 2-3 years, we've seen number of patents going up on rise from 22 to 34%. And trademark has done quite a great work in terms of increment to 69%. Which also is kind of an indication that there are new businesses growing on, because um, trademark is really a trade, and where the name that you use in case of a trade, and you open a new business, and that is how you get to register your new name so as to distinguish yourself from the business of others or your competitors. So clear indication is increase in the trademark application filing and grants shows a clear indication, and it has actually grown to 395% in less than, as you can see, from 2013-14 to 2018-19. So clearly a great rise in that sense. This slide I found yesterday very interesting while I was doing a bit of a research, just to find out, because it's more of startups that are becoming e-commerce based, or they are digital instead of just brick and mortar, or having a shop, or something which is more tangible, but they are more intangible in nature. And I just wanted to see how many domain registrations are happening, and has there been any change in terms of new business registrations by registering domain names in light of COVID? Because there is a lockdown, we are hearing economy is going down. Is it really impacting businesses? Is it really impacting entry of new businesses, to be precise? And I saw this steep rise, if you see, between April to May. So it's just 2 months. And this is, specific numbers, as you will see. There has been a peak in April, and then in May there has been again a stability, which clearly shows that there are new domain registrations happening from India itself, and is a clear indication of new businesses coming up, which also shows how much innovative people are in terms of resolving these issues that we are all facing today. IP is an important tool for startups, no doubt. And as I said, besides trademark and copyright, patents and copyrights, trademark, brand, logo, or goodwill is something most important to startups. And that is where I hope, Ravi, Sudeshna, and Madhu to cover, some bit on trademark for sure, to give you a little detail on how people are able to utilize trademark, create a goodwill, and have a reputation. And I think that's an important area for all of you as startups to learn much deep, dive into it. And IP is an important tool because it helps you, not really because it completely depends upon how much IP literate you are. There have been companies, there have been litigations where people have unknowingly come up with technologies which are infringing or use of patents or IP that actually belong to someone else. And later it was a shock when they got to know that they should have done a IP due diligence to know what they are doing. IPR for startup, it's a I won't make it. It's a no-brainer if I say that it helps in deterring competitors from copying your ideas, and that is where it's an important that you protect your IP. Due diligence is absolutely important so that you don't start infringing on others' IP. Also, this gives you a platform to be able to license and commercialize your intellectual property. Let me just give you, I mean, you don't have to read through this cluttered slide, but I just presented it for my own, points that I just wanted to pick up. So there is Ocean Tomo, just like any other stock exchange that lists different companies on how they are doing in the market. Ocean Tomo 300, it lists 300 top IP savvy companies and rate them, in the market how they are doing. And these are essentially the companies that use 80% of the intangible assets and only 20% are the tangible ones. Also, it gives, any startup that has a very good IP portfolio. It helps venture capitalists, it helps it to earn confidence of venture capitalists. And I think in the subsequent seminars, we'll be able to show how startups that had good IP portfolio were able to earn much more or get funding much more as against, other startups that were not really focusing on IP and never had IP portfolio. And what we are actually seeing that startups are actually shaping up the country's policy. I mean, some of the panelists today know for sure that how Indian government has been inviting some of you as startups to discuss issues related to computer related inventions. When we were discussing about section 3K, what needs to be protected, they wanted to hear from startups. Even issue with regard to form 27 where one has to give all details about commercialization of granted patents, it was startups being invited as to how are they feeling with regard to certain very important provisions of the Patent Act. Let me just give you, how IP literate startups are able to save their businesses much better as against others. I don't know how many of you are already aware of Oyo Rooms versus Zocel, where, Oyo Rooms we all know, and there is Zocel that came up with Zo Rooms. And the moment Oyo got to know, and it's a competing business, Oyo and Zo, they wanted to come up with merger, and later on this acquisition, or so to speak, transaction was disbanded by Oyo on the grounds that it found Zo Rooms to be using the entire database of Oyo Rooms, on the basis of which it built its own database. So it was a clear-cut case of trade secret infringement. Also, copyright material theft, where one of the employee of Oyo Rooms, was found to be, it was alleged that it has stolen the copyright material and given it to Zo Rooms, on the basis of which the entire portal of Zo Rooms has been built up. So I think these are the kind of, startup-led, litigations that have just started to emerge. Of course, it happened in 2015, 2016, but there are similar such a lot of litigations that we see now. It's just because they know how to safeguard their businesses, and they know how to, be aware of what IP actually belongs to someone else. This is what I was speaking to you in the third slide when I mentioned about our Honorable Finance Minister, when she said that I want India to become a hub for IP mortgages. And this is where we see, some of the companies that have already used, like, for example, Kingfisher. long time ago. I think it's in 2014, 2013, when it took loan from the Indian banks on the basis of the brand and the goodwill that it was able to build in the market. But later on, unfortunately, it became a non-performing entity. Considering all these situations, I think it's a very difficult job for even banks to understand that anybody who wants to use their IP as a collateral, how much important, how much value does that IP have? Also, would the IP owner be able to have sustained rate of remuneration or return on investment? Would that person be able to cover up all the loans that it has taken? Similarly, what is the value of the IP? So there are certain critical questions, but with Madam now launching, at least announcing that we want India to be a hub, I'm sure in India you'll find a lot of courses coming up on how to value your IP. I think that's another very critical and important area. Some of the initiatives by Indian government, let me just do a quick check. Rohit, if you can just tell me how much time do I have with me? Or have I exhausted my time?
Please check your report.
Okay, so this is 10:50. I'll just quickly use 5 more minutes or 3 4 more minutes, and then we'll start with the other panelists' topics. Okay, so these are some Indian government initiatives that I definitely want to tell you, because most of the times what happens is that startups don't even know that what all advantages they are able to derive in order to sustain better. So this is the latest change by the IP office, which is to help incentivize startups, and there is an expedited examination. The moment you file your patent, you can actually get it examined and granted in less than 12 months. Otherwise there is a statutory provision under, under the Patent Act, where one has to otherwise file an extra cost if someone wants to get its patent expedited. But in order to incentivize startups, there is no additional cost. But so far, if you're able to mention that you're a startup, you will be given this. You'll be able to utilize this platform to get your patent, expedited and get a grant in timely fashion. There are a lot of IP mentors by DPIIT, Department for Policy Promotion and International and Internal Trade, erstwhile DPIIT's DIPP, which is the nodal ministry for all IP making IP policies. Here, if you see from A to Z, you can just browse through with the name of the person who has registered itself as an IP mentor. You don't have to really pay to them. You can just go and say that I'm a startup and I need to use your services, and you will be provided with the IP mentor services in terms of how to draft a patent, even in terms of prosecution, and all the cost is being borne by the Indian government or the Intellectual Property Office. There are other government initiatives which are specifically from UP or Bihar, or state specific initiatives. For example, in UP government, what they have done is that they have come up with incubators. Even the selected incubators are provided 5-year support. Also on the honorary basis, 2 lakh per annum is given to the mentors. So there is whole sort of funding that is given in terms of support to a tune of 10 lakh also, if a startup is able to secure 25% of the minimum funding from venture capitalists. So a lot of initiatives from center and state government boards. This is the from the Ministry of MSME, and I'm very thankful that they supported ASSOCHAM for doing all these interactions that we are doing today, starting today. And this ministry has come up with a lot of facilitation centers, and 2 facilitation centers have just been recently granted to ASSOCHAM. One is in Delhi and one is in Bangalore. And any of you as startups who wish to, take help of this facilitation center, including other facilitation centers, and there is a huge list which I'm sure that will be able to provide you, that you can contact, and any issues that you have, and here it's all written what all services are available. This is a key initiative from Ministry of MSME. This is the Bihar state government's initiative, which is Ideathon. 2018, and stakeholders including startups and institutions, working professionals, they've been part of it. IPR facilitation guide, I think I would definitely encourage all of you to click this link whenever it is most convenient. It lists all the FAQs, everything about startups in our country, what all they should know, where all they can go. Everything is provided there. Do have a look at it. Also, there is an initiative by DATI, which is also known as CPIT, and it gives you grant up to 2 lakh for domestic IP filing, patent filing, and to a tune of 15 lakh if you go ahead with the international filing. I mean, what else does startup need? I mean, there is a whole sort of hand holding given by the Indian government now to all of that. These are the other initiative, and this is my last slide, which talks about, Atal Innovation Mission from Niti Aayog. Also, there is Atal Tinkering Labs, or there is Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, and a lot of other things. So, thank you so much. I'll just end over here. Do feel free to write at this email ID for any questions that you have. And with this, I would just like to now invite our other panelists. We start with Ravi. I know Ravi for many years now. He is one extraordinary in terms of, knowing about IP, and he's the one who is always, ready to help. Any of you who wants his help, his firm's help, please do write to them. Ravi, with this, we'll start with you now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shruti. I'll just share my screen. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, but put it on the slideshow.
Okay, can you see the slide deck now?
Yes, yes.
Excellent, excellent. So thank you again, Sheetal, and also big thank you to SHM for making us part of this webinar. And also big thank you to Ministry of MSME for this opportunity. So what I'm going to do is to give a bit of overview of how IP can contribute the knowledge economy. And my focus would be a mix of focus on MSMEs as well as on startup ecosystem. So as we all know that MSMEs essentially are the pillar of manufacturing sector in every country in the world. I mean, I still remember having some very interesting conversations with my friends in Germany, which is particularly known for a very strong manufacturing facility, primarily on engineering and automobile side. And they've been very vocal about the fact that while they may have large size corporations, which are global companies, but the real engine of growth in Germany, for example, is primarily the MSMEs and the startups. These are the ones which are agile, adaptive organizations or a sector which is able to deal with different set of requirements that the country may have. Now, when we look at MSMEs, the traditional MSMEs have been a little bit more focused towards improving the existing products. The focus has been more around looking at existing products and seeing how we can improvise and make them do better. Also, we have seen the MSMEs traditionally have been a little more focused towards finding ways to reduce the cost or bring in cost efficiencies into the process or the finished product. So that's been traditionally the focus of MSMEs in terms of R&D, which leads us to the kind of innovations that we generally see from MSMEs. And these are more like incremental innovations. But of course, things are evolving fast now, especially when you have a lot of energy around the startup ecosystem in the country, where they're also looking at significant breakthroughs to innovate. But traditionally, what we have seen is that in MSC sector, it is more about incremental innovations of improvisation of what already exists. Now, in the given circumstances, there are a whole lot of innovations that happen in MSMEs, but The question remains, how do they prioritize the kind of innovations that they see? Again, traditionally, design innovation has been one of the most focal areas for MSMEs, where, as I said, you have existing products where you bring about workshop modifications and make them function better, or as I said, bring in some new properties or new features into the existing products. And therefore, design innovation forms one of the most important and integral part of the innovation that we see in the MSME sector and also in the startup ecosystem. Now, when you are innovating, the intent is how do you bring in a differentiation in the marketplace, which could mean that as a young company or a medium-sized enterprise, you have to leverage your IP to position yourself as different from other competing products or competitors in the marketplace. You also have to leverage IP in a way to position yourself differently within your own system to say to the employees that the more innovation you're able to bring about, more value you are able to add to the ecosystem. And then that value that you bring in can give you more leverage in terms of greater market share, better pricing for your product, and more traction in the marketplace. Now, when we talk about IPs, and Sheetal touched upon these IPs briefly, and my other co-panelists Madhusudan and Sudeshna will talk about each of these IPs in detail. But to very quickly give you an overview in terms of what these IPs really mean, in terms of how they're different from each other. So when you talk about design, as I earlier talked about, design innovation is essentially from legal perspective. Design innovation is more around changes you bring about in an article to make it look more attractive. So it's more about aesthetics, eye appeal. On the other hand, there are enough data points to suggest that MSMEs and startups are actually quite familiar with the trademarks, logos, and slogan kind of protection for IP. There are enough surveys to suggest that there's a lot of awareness already in startup and MSME segment amount trademarks where you talk about branding of your product, the name you give to your product, or the services that you offer to the customers. Patents are more on technology. So this is important for us to appreciate, and Madhu will cover this part in detail as we go forward. But unlike design, which is more about look and feel of the article, patents are more about technology innovation. How do you make things function better or lead to better results? Geographical indication is one segment where again MSMEs have traditionally done well. But having said that, there's still a lot of scope for MSMEs, particularly, and even startups for that matter, to have more impact in the marketplace. So when we talk about geographical indications, I'll give an example for a let's say basmati rice. So you have basmati rice, a kind of a rice which can be grown only in certain part of the country, and it has certain unique traits because of the climatic conditions in those parts of the country. So in other words, people in that part of the country or that region or that geography can sell the rice and brand it as a geographical indication in terms of being a basmati rice. So you're able to leverage that kind of IP in your products and are able to derive more value and benefit your organization and entire ecosystem. Another element which is again critical for every organization that believes in innovation is about trade secrets. Things that could be unique, for example, in some processes. You may not want to disclose it to public at large because some of the other forms of IP require disclosure to public at large. Trade secret is a kind of an IP where you keep the information confidential by having appropriate checks and balances within your organization and with your partners and vendors so that you can continue to enjoy monopoly by way of keeping that information secret, which could be, often people talk about typical, the Coca-Cola formula and a whole lot of other things where people have been able to maintain monopoly and able to maintain differentiation in the marketplace by keeping certain kind of technology or information confidential. Now, you can have as an organization develop a product which can have multiple forms of IP sitting in it. So it's important for you to have a close look at what you have developed in your organization and see which all forms of IP can be there, which can help you monopolize and gain lead in the marketplace. Some examples I've highlighted here. So for example, you see a beautiful chair here. Now it looks very pretty. It has got aesthetic look. This will qualify for a design registration. On the left hand side, you see a fire extinguisher. Now here, for example, innovation could be in terms of a unique chemical composition that you may have put into this extinguisher, which can help you douse fire, let's say, in half the time. So the innovation is on the technology side in terms of the chemical composition. Now that will qualify for a patent because it's a technical innovation. You can have on the extreme right, for example, if this is like say Darjeeling tea grown in certain districts in the area, Darjeeling, the tea that is manufactured and sold can be positioned as a geographical indication in the form of Darjeeling tea and enjoy a certain kind of premium pricing and traction in the marketplace. And of course, you can have a branding done by way of trademarks. For example, here you have the logo, a device mark for PepsiCo. So you can have a whole lot of IP that you might have in your organization, and it's important for you to tap it, identify it, and seek protection wherever required. Sheetal briefly touched upon IP valuation. I fully agree that valuation is one piece which is so important now in our ecosystem. Where as a country, we have learned, in a way, we have learned to build IP portfolios. It could be of different sizes, but there's a decent amount of awareness now in terms of building IP portfolio among organizations. The next obvious step is how do you leverage that body of IP that you have created, be it patents, trademarks, designs and stuff like that. Now there are established methodologies that are available by way of which you can put a value or put a number to the IP portfolio that you have created. There could be methodologies like cost methodology, market methodology, and there are a few other methodologies which can be employed to put a number in your balance sheet that this is the value of the IP that you have. Now, the next obvious thing is, can you leverage that IP as a commodity? Like Sheetal just now talked about, you can use IP as a collateral for example, secure loans from the banks. You can license out some of these technologies that can give you more value or more funds that you may require as a startup if it makes business sense to you. And of course, at some point in time, you may want to sell off your IP if it is not making much sense in terms of what you presently do or plan to do as an organization or as a startup. There are a whole lot of things that you can do with the IP that you create and use it as a commodity. And these are the new things that our country is learning. I'm glad there's a lot of discussion now around valuation, and we see more of that as we go forward. Now, Sheetal touched upon this in terms of various initiatives taken up by the government, provided by the top government for you to pay a lot less as a government fee when you seek IP, be it for patents, design, trademarks. So you spend a lot less in government fee to get IP or procure IP. At the same time, as Sheetal touched upon, there are a lot of reimbursement mechanisms available, both at the central level, by the central government, and also by different state governments, where large sums of monies can be reimbursed. So some of the programs, for example, MIGHTY program that Sheetal touched upon, for overseas IP that you may, because if your market is US, you have sought patents or design registrations in US, you do spend good amount of money with the upper limit of 15 lakhs or 20 lakhs can be easily reimbursed by some of these government departments. And these processes are pretty established, standardized practices or procedures where you can expect the reimbursement to happen in something like 3 to 4 months time. So pretty good system in place now. Now, one element I wanted to quickly touch upon is about the utility model protection, and this is something that the MSME sector has been talking about for a while. Even in the government machinery, there's been a bit of discussion about whether in our country we can have utility model protection or not. Just to give you an idea, utility model protection is different from uh, patents, trademarks, copyrights, and GI and other forms of IP that I just now talked about. Utility model protection is essentially a protection provided for any workshop modification that you may have brought about in your facility, in your factories, in your design plants. These modifications could be minor kind of modifications. They may not be breakthroughs, but still they are innovations. So the threshold barrier for getting utility model protection is lower than the barrier that you may have for patent protection or for other kinds of IP protections. But especially for MSMEs, it's so critical that when these MSMEs bring about small innovations, which are workshop modifications, but they do have value, you have to have a legal framework which provides for a protection for these innovations. Interestingly, in our draft national IPR policy that we had a few years ago, there was a mention about the possibility of having this kind of a protection available in India. But somehow in the final version, we didn't see that as a possibility. I'm glad that there are discussions already on in terms of possibility to look at it as an additional layer of IP protection in India. We know of countries like Germany, Japan, which are heavy into manufacturing and designing. They have these kind of mechanism and protections available, which encourages MSMEs and young companies to even get protection for those minor workshop modifications that they bring about in their workplace. This is something that I'm hoping at some point in time, if we have, can bring more impetus in terms of innovation in the country. China, for example, where we talk about tons of patents and tons of IP being sought, as some of you probably already know, that almost 65 to 70% of the IP which is sought by China or is registered in China as IP, vast majority of that is utility model protection, because countries which are strong in manufacturing need that kind of a layer of additional protection on the manufacturing side. And therefore you see places like China, Germany, and other places which are strong on manufacturing tend to provide for this kind of protection. India now also in last 2 years making more efforts towards ramping up our manufacturing capabilities and scaling up a bit. I think this could be an interesting proposition that government can look at. Moving forward now, as a young company, as a startup, as an MSME, you develop IP. Now, a lot of MSMEs, for example, work on the model of contract for service, which means that if I'm an MSME, I have a customer, which could be a large size corporation. They give me a fixed specification. I have to develop an article or a product based on that predetermined specification. So it's essentially a contract for service where I provide my services in lieu of the compensation. Then the question comes in, who owns the IP when I am developing that article based on predetermined specification, but I also add value in terms of modification that I may have to bring about to ultimately create that article. So the question is, who owns the IP? Traditionally, in these agreements, you would see the client would own the IP. As a service provider or as a contract manufacturer, as an MSME, I may not own the IP. A lot of it is driven by contracts. So that's one part of it. The question could also be that can there be a possibility to have a joint IP where I also get some value in return for the value I added while developing or designing that article or enhancing the performance of that article. And what happens when I gain some knowledge by way of that experience and use some of that knowledge? And I'm not talking about infringing somebody else's IP, but learning from my this project, and I use it for developing IP in future. Who owns that kind of future IP? These are the questions that need to be discussed, debated, especially when you're getting into a contract with your clients and vendors, to see to it there's enough clarity in terms of who owns what. That kind of boundary and segregation is so very important when you have those kind of contracts as MSMEs or even as young companies. This is something which I always encourage my clients and contacts in startup ecosystem as well as in MSMEs, is that you might have a whole lot of innovation happening in your workplace. But there's so much action in terms of delivery of services and products that often a lot of these bright ideas get diluted and distributed and don't get properly documented. So it's very important for every young company, especially, even I would say even large size companies, to have some mechanism where they either monthly, quarterly, half yearly do a nice proper audit or a review of where they stand today in terms of IP. Document all the projects which can have potential IP. Segregate those IPs into kinds of IP that you have: patent, designs, trademarks, copyright, stuff like that, and then put them in an order of priority in terms of your business needs. So if something is trademark is more important for me today, I go for that. Or patent can wait for a while. Okay, I can keep it, as item number 2 or 3 in my priority list. So that is very important. And why it is important is because ultimately you need to not only have a large size IP portfolio, but you need to also have a meaningful IP portfolio where this IP is really able to contribute and help your organization grow. Trust me, a lot of IP can be a white elephant in the sense that you may end up creating a huge IP portfolio, but if you're not able to monetize it or take advantage of that portfolio, it can also be a burden in terms of maintenance of this IP, because IP management and IP portfolio building, it could be an expensive exercise. So use your funds judiciously as a young company or as an MSME, and have a meaningful portfolio developed. And this is where your quarterly or monthly or half yearly audit can really help you achieve that. Clearly, we are all in this very difficult COVID-19 situation, but whatever we have seen so far gives us a tremendous amount of confidence that, MSMEs and startups have played a huge role in terms of how they're able to contribute to the ecosystem even during those difficult times. So if you see some of those masks and sanitizers that you're using, or some other robotic home solutions that you may have bought during this difficult time, a lot of most of these products are actually developed by MSMEs and young companies. So MSMEs and startups continue to play a huge role in terms of our ecosystem. They have the agility, they have the adaptability that a lot of large size companies may not have. And therefore, it's so important for us to find ways and means to support and protect interest of MSMEs and startups. And my last slide is this news item which I recently saw, and I was so glad to see. You look at the title of the news item, which says the low-cost innovation by MSMEs are key to minimizing supply chain disruptions amid COVID-19. So as I said earlier in my slides, that a lot of these low cost or cost efficiency related innovations that we see in the MSME sectors are so very important for the entire country in terms of even during the difficult times of disruption in the supply chain, where young companies have the agility and are able to find ways and means to even modify their existing products and solutions to offer something which is so important for the country at this point in time. So this is what I had for the presentation today. I'll be happy to take any questions that you may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ravi. This was excellent. Especially, I loved that slide where you talked about IP audit, where it's extremely important to prune your IP, because in a bid, what people do is that they just build upon it and later on they find it as a liability. So that was a good slide for sure, amongst other slides. I have got some questions with me now. And before we proceed to Sudeshna and Madhu, let's pick up these and see how best we are able to address this. And all of you are free to, support in replying to this. So first one, I don't know who has sent it because what I received is only the questions. But thanks to those who have sent it, these are truly very important ones. So first is that if an innovator or MSME undertakes a development project along with any government department, and it could be any government department, without any formal document on IPR, who will own the IP? And to the best of my understanding, I think for any collaboration to even kickstart, you must have a document in place which gives you clarity who is the co-owner, who is the one who will have how much stake. But what if you don't have? Any of you would like to take this up?
maybe I can give preliminary inputs and then maybe Sudeshna and Madhu may have some additional thoughts. So as you rightly said, of course, it's a difficult situation to be in when you don't have documentation in place.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the fact remains that when you're dealing with the government machinery, they
Hmm.
may have some established processes that you may still have to rely upon. So I think a mix of things. One, a lot depends upon what the law says. The kind of IP involved could be also relevant. But looking at in India, if it is a contract for service kind of a situation, even if there's no contract per se, but in terms of conduct of the parties, that may have a bearing to give a shape and color to the kind of obligations two parties may have. So that's my preliminary view on this. Maybe Sudeshna or Madhu may have some additional thoughts.
No, Madhu, Sudeshna?
Nothing more to add, Ravi, to this.
Okay. So I think it is, I mean, the key take home message is it's always good to have something in place, but otherwise it's basically the precedence. And usually, I mean, it also happens if you are working with the government and be careful who is supporting you with the funds. If it is a fund coming from Indian government, it's primarily the taxpayers' money. And that is where the challenge might come. How best can you commercialize, at what cost? And that is where, you know, there could be some potential restrictions. But if it is PPP model, then it could be a completely different, situation.
True.
Next
True.
question is, can the ODM and OEMs of the defense sector avail facilitation cells established by various departments like DST, DGQA, and others? I think, to the best of my understanding, there is no restriction on the usage. Anybody and anyone can take support. Especially now, we've got a lot of facilitation centers from MSME, SOCHAM has it, CI, and so many others. You know, FICCI has, and many other departments have. Also, we've got IP facilitation facilitators picked up by the Indian Patent Office. I think that should not be a problem. If anyone else from the panelists have any other inputs.
I mean, generally, Sheetal, what I have seen is, of course, a lot depends also upon the kind of innovation or IP that you have. And I've seen that, for example, the way DST would look at it could be a little different from the way, for example, DBT would look at it.
Yeah.
So, of course, those nuances are involved, but broadly, as you rightly said, there are a whole lot of platforms available to different departments within different ministries to do the hand holding.
Yeah. Okay, then the next question is, in the situation like COVID-19, the products are launched much earlier than the initiation of IPR application process. At this juncture, how do you protect the interest of innovators or industry? And I think we don't have to worry on this because there is a grace period which is given under the Indian Patent Act, which is within 1 year, even if you put it under an exhibition or you have started to use it for, let's say, for experimentation, or it's already up in the domain. But if within that 1 year of grace period you are able to file your IP, that shouldn't be a prior art for your own invention. So any other points from the panelists on this?
Sheetal, there is one caveat. Yeah, so maybe you can touch upon first and then Madhu. Yeah, there are some nuances here. Yeah. Sudeshna, go ahead.
Yeah. So, Sheetal, with regard to, can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you all
very
hear
well.
me?
Very well.
You can hear, right? Okay. Yeah. So what I was saying with regard to trademarks, there is no restriction on use. So you can definitely start using your mark and thereafter file the application. So there is nothing like, you cannot use, and you can only, you have to first file the application. In fact, we will sometimes suggest our clients that it is always advisable to use the mark and thereafter go for filing in respect of certain marks. But yeah, you can always use it. You can, if you're using it, you can, you put a TM mark and then you can apply for your trademark registration. And when you're applying for the trademark registration, the use that you have already made, you can actually claim that use in the application. Yeah, that's
for
it.
trademark, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
However,
that's for trademark.
on the patent side, it will work differently. Madhu, would you like to explain that?
Yes.
As Sheetal told, we have a grace period on the different grounds. Apart from that, there's a ground that if your invention is worked on the commercial basis. For example, you have taken some transaction, or you have sold your products, are used on trial basis apart from that experimental purpose. So in that case, grace period will not be applicable for such innovations.
Hmm.
So
Right.
therefore, just to add to that, Sheetal, so we have seen in last 2 months, we have received whole lot of innovations for request for filing of patents in the area of ventilators, in the areas like sanitizer chemical compositions. Uh, 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 the grace period of 1 year is only for something that you do on trial basis, experimental basis. Commercial activities are not enjoying that kind of grace period. So therefore, advice would be file a provisional application in India quickly at minimal cost, flag the date, get the priority, and then commercially release the product on the patent side. Of course, on
Yes.
trademark side, as Deshna explained, it works differently. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So we've got, so these three questions were from Enroute Technology. So thanks for giving us those questions. And there are several other questions. For example, let me pick up. So for example, the utility model, Ravi, that you just spoke about, there is a question from one of the startups. He says that can a person from India file a utility patents outside of India?
Yes, yes. In those countries where utility model protection is available as a law, in those countries you can. Of course, there are other nuances of law that will be applicable. For example, in Germany, the options are more wide open for engineering solutions, little less widely available for biotech and chemical innovations. So those nuances are country specific, but broadly, yes, you can go ahead and seek protection under utility model in any country which could be of commercial interest to you, assuming that country has got the law in place. Yeah.
Right. And this does not require any prior permission under Section 39 from the Patent Office, right? One can just simply go and file it.
So
Unless if it is defense or atomic energy related.
so there could be different views around it. It could be a little subjective, Sheetal. So for example, it covers under our patent law provides for the restriction to have a foreign filing license if you want to file first overseas. Now, if the innovation that you're seeking utility model protection for, if it is somewhere a technical solution,
Yeah.
and let's say not a design solution, then and design in terms of look and feel and that kind of stuff,
Yes.
then my suggestion would be, even when India does not provide for utility model protection, it's still as a cautionary measure advisable to seek foreign filing license from India, because as you know, there's no retrospective approval available, and you don't want tomorrow any challenge to your right that you may have acquired overseas. So it's more like a matter of utmost caution, because the law does
Yeah.
not provide in India for retrospective protection. That's the only limiting point. Utility model on the technical side. That's the only caveat.
Yeah. There is also a very important question on IPAB not yet functional. And what should a startup do if there is a dispute? I mean, is there a court that should be a straight reprieve, or where do you go?
So fortunately, as we speak now, IPAB is functional after a lot of hiccups over many years in terms of appointment of officers and logistical support and administrative challenges we had. So now, right now, it's functional, and we are hoping that it will stay like that. Having said that, even when during the times when IPAB was not functional, on the patent side we had more challenges. On the trademark side, it was still doing better. There have been instances on urgent matters. Parties have been able to file a writ petition in high courts. We've seen a whole lot of writs being filed in Delhi High Court, for example, and the directions were taken through the court for the patent office to act on certain matters. So to that extent, limited relief was available through the writ petition route. But I think the ideal situation is IPAB to be fully functional, because they've accumulated so much of backlog in last 4 or 5 years, and courts also have their own share of backlog to deal with. And now we are hoping, now since we have the chairman in place, officers in place, let's hope that it can gain more momentum as we go forward.
Great. So that's a good thing. I think we will take a couple of questions. Yeah, go ahead,
To add
Sudeshna.
to
Go
this,
ahead.
actually, in this COVID-19 situation, they are actually, issued notification that in case of urgent hearings, it can be done through video conferencing. So, notice has been issued by Manmohan Singh, who is the chairman of IPAB now. And there are, if you want to have an urgent hearing, you can do it through video conferencing right now in this situation.
All right. So I'll pick up this last question and then we go to Madhu for his talk. Then we'll break for 5 minutes and we go to Sudeshna. So last question for this one. It says it's more from the film industry innovation and the creation, where he says that what kind of protection we can go for if one has brought out some complete change in the film production by creating a marketplace which breaks the archaic way of working that this industry has been currently working on. So it's a completely new working place or a new marketplace. It brings about much needed time and cost efficiencies. It also talks about, this is organizing the whole industry and ecosystem and bring in transparency. I think if it is something related to business method, clearly in India, we don't have a protection on that. I think this is something we need more information on what your innovation is for us to give you any output on understanding on what kind of IPR that one can go for. But anything that other panelists would like to say.
Yeah, Sheetal, so maybe, so there could be mix of IPs. Maybe the predominant word could be the copyright, which Sudeshna can elaborate on. But just quickly on the patent side, there could be some, when the question talks about time efficiencies and process efficiencies, if there are some technical solutions also around that in terms of how to make it more efficient, then even if the focus stays on the technical side in the patent applications and you downplay the business method part, it might still be a good case for patents. But I think still the predominant part of this question is around copyright. So Sudeshna, over to you.
Yeah. So it all depends upon what exactly the IP they are looking at. So when we talk of copyright, it is not just one single right, but copyright is essentially it's a bundle of rights. So when he says that he's created, there is a total change in the system. So what is it? Is there enough content in it? So if it's a content-based thing, then you can apply for literary work in copyright. Like I said, copyright is a bundle of rights. So if it's like even if there is a cinematograph thing involved, or then there'll be separate rights involved in it. Literary rights. There's a musical right. There's a sound recording rights that are involved. So it's a bundle of rights that he has to see. They have to see what exactly they have created and how it can be protected through copyright.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we'll just quickly go with Madhu with your presentation. I can't hear you. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, you're able to see my presentation now?
Yes. Yes. Good.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dr. Sheetal, and thank you for the Ministry of MSME and ASSOCHAM for this opportunity. As we discussed initially, IP plays a crucial role for MSMEs and startups. So in next 15 minutes, I'll talk about importance of patent in the field of IP and how exactly one being a MSME startup can take advantage of patent would help us to generate new resources of revenue. At the same time, how it will help them to protect their products. So before jumping into the context, I would like to go through with the basic process one has to follow when they develop the invention, which actually results into the patents. Here, if you see, not every invention can go into the patentable subject matter. At the same time, not every invention can mature into patent. So we have to go through these 5 set of process before we get into the patent. What does it mean? So here, when every invention is developed, you have to make sure that your invention falls under the patentable subject matter. Uh, in Indian Patent Act, there is artificial exclusions are noted. If any of your invention falls within that purview of section 3, we generally call about, so such kind of inventions are not patentables. So we have to make sure that your invention, first of all, whether falls under the patentable subject matter or not. Then once the invention is developed, we should to make sure whether your invention is industrially applicable or industrially useful. If you develop an innovation which cannot be used in any of the industries, then such kind of invention of no use. The third process or the step you need to require is novelty. So your invention has to be new. The time you generate your invention, the time you develop the invention, such kind of invention should not be existed anywhere in the world. At the same time, need not to be in the product form, it should be in the publication form. Invention, your similar invention should not be in any of the electronic form published in any of the journals or website. In case similar inventions are published prior to your innovation application is filed, then you lose the novelty. The fourth important aspect is inventive step. We generally call it as a non-obviousness. When you develop your innovations or inventions, you have to make sure that it has some significant development or significant improvement over the existing innovations which is already available or over the existing products. So here, if give an example of significant improvement could be, for example, you have reduced the time required to calculate any process, or you reduce the time required to execute some process, or you improve the efficiency of an engine. Certain kind of example can be considered to showcase the inventive step. And very important aspect, to get a patent, you should have a specification drafted in such a way that if anybody reads your specification, should be in a position to understand your invention, and at the same time should be in a position to develop your invention. If you're able to satisfy all these 5 different conditions, then your application will mature into patent. So then once you get the patent, then what is the use of this patent for me? That is the best question you can ask for oneself. Being a startup and being a MSME, so the fund is the crunch, and you obviously have limited funding on your side. You, as Ravi also mentioned, you need to judicially spend whatever you have in hand. So it is very important to know what is the benefit the patent can bring it to you. One, the patent would help protect your innovation and give a commercial advantage over competitors. If you see on the right hand side, the picture actually demonstrates many things. So I'm trying to protect my product such that it will not break down. If you bring the analogy from that, so if you don't protect your product, which is innovative product, the competitors can steal that idea and they can come out with their manufacturing and sell the products. So you have spent your money and you have spent your time in developing the product, and if you fail to protect that, one, you lose the commercial advantage over that. Second, your competitors will be able to steal very easily. So second benefit you get out of patent is licensing possibilities. So this you can consider as a separate stream of income generation, apart from that manufacturing and bringing your own products into the market. As I said, if you don't protect, it will be difficult to recoup whatever the expenses you have spent on your research and development. So if someone copies before you bring that product into the market, your competitor brings into the market, then use difficulty for you to recover the expenses you have spent on the R&D. Fourth benefit you get is your patent sometimes would help you to expand the collaboration. It could be like having a cross licensing with your competitors, where you believe you may have to have a core patent which is protected by your competitor to be used in your inventions or product development. In that case, your pool of patent would help you to do the expanded collaboration. And fifth important aspect, so you don't require any editors. You can be your own editors and you can publish yourself. If you are willing to publish your papers in some other journals or the international paper, exhibitions, you have to go through certain process and filters. So here there is nothing required as such. So you file the patent application, the patent office will take care of publishing your application. So I'll talk about more on commercial advantage and licensing possibilities going forward. And I insist that at least these two aspects should be part of your business strategy going forward. Okay, this picture talks more of patents and its importance of that. See, you see here, there are two different aspects in the diagram or illustration. There is a pool of patents. We call it as a patent mines, and there is a potential infringer. So one or the other day, every company has to go through this process. For example, like we place the land mines in the border of country to protect enemies getting into the country. Similar way, the patent will work. For example, you are the startup and you have a strategy to develop your portfolio. So in that case, you are generating this box with a lot of landmines, and you will be waiting that your competitor in the future definitely looking into your patents and he may try to steal your patent. So, or if you want to walk through this box, he may end up stepping on in one of these landmines. When he steps on this patent mine, this calls into infringement. So automatically there is an infringement process and everything goes well, you'll be able to obtain a damage from your potential infringer in the future. Alternatively, if you see you are standing on the right side and you don't have your patents, you don't have your products protected with the patents, and you are getting into a new territory, then you should be more cautious when walking through these boxes. If you see, there are your competitors who are already protected with patents through protected products through patents, and you believe that you have some scope to develop in the territory, then make sure that you walk through these white spaces, not to step on these landmines. So if you unknowingly or knowingly step on these patent mines, you will end up paying cost. Let's come to the business objectives. As I said, at least the competitive advantage and the licensing revenue should be part of your business objective. When you develop your own business objective, make sure that you include these two as part of your objectives. The basic reason for filing patent application usually to obtain commercial advantage. I can give an example of Gillette here. Look at Gillette. So you wouldn't have seen any competition for Gillette from the long time in the space of razors. So what could be the reason you could be thinking of here? The Gillette is so competitive here that they make sure every development they do for the razors, they file the protection by way of patent. So by doing that, though they have obtained the commercial advantage, there are no competitors to challenge the Gillette product. Then licensing revenue. So companies would like to coexist with the competitors by manufacturing their own product, coming to the market and selling their own products. At the same time, some companies as a strategy, they don't offer any product or services. They sit idle, but they provide licenses for their patents. That's how they generate the revenue. So I would like to take an example of a competitive advantage so that how it is beneficial, it's very, you will get to know. In this example, if you see, company A develop a semiconductor wafers, a process for polishing semiconductor wafers. So in this process, they identified, okay, these 3 steps are required for me to manufacture or come out with polishing the semiconductor wafers. See, they developed X, Y, and Z as the step, and they identified material hem is useful in the step Y, which helps us to improve the process of polishing semiconductor wafers. And they come to the attorney to protect that particular process along with the material. The attorney will make sure that when they get this particular invention, not only they protect the process with the material hem, they make sure that what could be alternatives for material hem which can be goes through the process and improve the scope of the process. So reason is, if you protect only process with the material hem, the chances are high your competitors start working around your invention and they identify the alternative materials which can further improvise your process. So that's the reason it's very important for you to identify what could be your alternatives when you develop your invention. Don't sit on your invention. Once you develop your invention, make sure that put yourself into the competitor's shoes and think what could be alternatives one could work around your invention. So that is very important. What happens when you protect process with alternatives, then you enjoy de facto exclusivity. Now nobody can practice your process, first of all, then nobody can even practice the process with the alternative materials. So that's way, by patenting your product along with the alternatives, it gives the competitive advantage. Moving on, as I said, you can consider patents as a secondary sources of income. So I'll give some examples how you can consider that. One, cross-licensing through open platform. As I said, you have certain pool of patents and your competitors has a pool of patents, but you both are in need of certain patents. So then you can have a bargain with your competitors. You can say that you can take this particular patent and you can implement your product. At the same time, you give me that particular patent which I believe I required in my product development. In that way, you can go and do the cross-licensing. I'll come to an example how cross-licensing helps in generating the revenue or protecting your inventions. Then you can have royalty-bearing license to other industry players. For example, you don't want to manufacture your product or a process, but you still want to get the benefit out of your patent. In that case, you can license your patent to third parties, and in turn, those third parties or other industry players will give a royalty to you every time they manufacture and sell the product. What is the benefit by doing this? One, you reap the rewards of increased market size. You cannot go throughout the world and sell your product. You definitely need your associates to do that. So by providing the royalty bearing license to your third party players in different countries, so you'll be able to reach out to those markets by sitting without doing a manufacturing. By doing that, you'll be able to reach to early leadership position in sales of products based on patented technology. As I said, Gillette an example, Qualcomm as an example. You can see that they have a leadership position in their own product development. You can always retain the rights over future development of your patent. Royalty bearing license doesn't mean you're selling out your patent. It's very similar to what you're doing is leasing out your house. For example, if you're not in use of the particular house, you can lease it out for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Similarly, your patent can be licensed out without selling it directly. You can license out for 1 year, 2 years, or based on your requirement, you can license out for any number of years. At the same time, you still hold the right over future development. You can continue to develop, use the invention, you can continue to develop over your invention, come out with new innovations over that, and you can continue to license it out. That's what Qualcomm is generally does. And your patent will definitely help during the infringement days. When you are stuck in infringement and you can always go and bargain with your competitors. Okay, so you can tell that, okay, certain patent portfolio I already have which may be useful to you. You can give a license to them. So that would definitely help you to reduce your damages which helps in collaboration as well. This important strategy we generally suggest to everyone to make use of picket fence. What that picket fence means? So you are little late in innovations, you are little late in particular product segment, but your competitors have many patents protected in and around. But what you can think of is, you think about what could be the improvements the competitor can make over the protected patents. You start working upon those improvements or the competitor's technology, and you fence the competitor moving in that particular direction. So that is what we call it as a picket fence. This definitely help you to access the core patents of your competitors, which you believe may be required for you to do research and development on that core product. What is the key here? You need to anticipate the market need. When you start thinking about future or modification of patent, you should anticipate what is the market need of that particular patented product. Let's look at the example. How does the picket fence work? Assume that your competitor is company A, and they have a basic patent on laser printing system. There is a core patent that make use of new photoconductor to form images. Now your company, that is B, would like to gain access to the basic technology, because you are also getting into laser printing system, and you also want to manufacture the product and sell that product in the market. But the problem is, company A, your competitor, is already protected that basic patent. So without making use of that patent, you'll be not in a position to develop any improvements, which is very similar what we call it as standard patents. So now you are very desperate. You have invested your research, you invested your money, everything in that particular product segment without keeping any alternatives in your mind. Now you should make sure, now you should get into this particular product segment. In that time, you can embark on the picket fence strategy. What is that? You analyze the future needs of relevant market and predict the market will require new surface coating. For example, company A has already developed laser printing system using new photoconductor. But to improve the life of the photoconductor, you may require new coating. Now you start working upon those new coatings and various different coatings which helps the life of the photoconductor, at the same time which helps the life of the laser printing system. Now companies B start filing patent application on variety of different surface coatings, and now they start selling the different surface coatings, and as soon as the market demands picks up for that surface coating, you approach company A for cross licensing. By doing this, you will be able to get the license for core patent, and at the same time you'll be able to now work around the core patent. That's how the picket fence strategy work for you.
Madhu,
Yes.
may I just intervene? Sorry, just trying to be a time checker keeper also. We have got only 10 minutes left for Sudeshna to cover her presentation. If you can just close.
I have last slide. I'll finish it up and I'll just close it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, these are 10 reasons why startup or MSME should be considering filing the patent. I'm not getting into too detail considering the paucity of time. So I just touch upon these 10 different reasons you should consider. Every patent definitely helps venture capital investment. It defends itself against attack by incumbent rivals. So Nest and Honeywell is the good example. When the smart thermostat was developed for Nest was a startup. Honeywell was the big player by that time, but Nest had a pool of patent, and also Nest purchased the patent from the intellectual ventures which are developing the line of the product. So in that way, they were able to defend Honeywell. So it helps the startup stop theft of its innovation by large rivals. when Amazon was the startup, there was a threat from the Barnes and Noble, which was supposed to steal one-click online purchase system. So Amazon was able to stop that by filing the patent. This will ensure startup freedom to operate. For example, when Google was in the startup stage, they protected seminal page rank technology, so that helped them to operate their invention. Help startup rapidly increase in market share. This is one of the good example where Pente startup has developed the mobile phone antenna. Now 80% of mobile phone make use of this antenna. So help startup from joint ventures or R&D partnerships, increase the chances that startup will be acquired. As I talked about Nest, Google was acquired the Nest for $3.2 billion. The major reason considered like IP is the major reason for this development. It helps the startup get ready for an IPO. Facebook, when we're coming out with the IPO, they shelled out $550 million to buy AOL's patents, which was earlier AOL patents was owned by Microsoft. Ultimately, Facebook was able to acquire those patents. At the same time, they bought 750 patents from IBM, which is in the same product line. So there was a survey conducted. A startup with IP, protected IP, would always do better as against startup without IP. So definitely startup, it helps the startup to launch $1 billion empire. Just see the example of here, Dropbox, Zynga, Square, GoPro, and Google. They are the good example how the startup has matured into $1 billion empires. So they are the reasons we should consider when you decided that you find the patents. You can take a motivation from these reasons and you start working upon your innovation and start protecting your innovations. This is it from my side.
Okay, thank you so much, Madhu. I think this was very comprehensive, and I am now getting a hint that we might have to invite all of you again for a detailed discussion, you know, because patents is such an area which requires you to have more details than, you know, any other topic. So we'll just quickly go to Sudeshna. I know I have got 3 more questions in my list, but we won't take it up now. If we have a time after Sudeshna's address, we'll take it. Otherwise, we'll take it up in the next session that we have in, you know, for the next stage. So,
Sure,
Desha, please go ahead.
Yeah, so can you all see my slide? Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah, and my slide is also visible, right?
Yes, yes, it's visible.
Okay, fine. I'll start off right away, considering that there is not much time with us. So, my topic today was, IP issues that startups might face. And mostly some of the issues has already been discussed by Dr. Sheetal and Ravi and Madhu regarding patents. So I'm going to touch upon trademarks and copyright a little bit. So as you can see, we have already discussed the different types of intellectual property that you may have. So, the first one that I'll discuss is regarding trademarks, or what normally is known as brands. So what do we mean by a trademark and why it is important, in respect of your product or your services? So trademark, it means any mark or sign or symbol, name, a device, which basically identifies your product. And it should be something which, it distinguishes your product from those of your competitors or for those in the market. So that is what we mean by trademark. Now, when you're applying for trademark, or when you're considering a name as a trademark, there are a few things that you should keep in mind. One is that, the trademark should not describe your product. Like, for example, you should not, if you're basically in the manufacturing sector, you're manufacturing a product, say, wipes or tissues, face tissues. It should not be, you should not name your product as facial tissue. Why? Because it describes your product. So whenever you're considering for a trademark, it should be a mark which is distinctive enough, and you should be able to distinguish your products from those of the others who are already there in the market. And with regard to copyright, I would, what do we mean by copyright? Like I earlier said, copyright, it is a bundle of rights, and it is not a single right. And it all depends upon original artistic work or original literary work or original musical work. So the protection is given in respect of original work. And a little bit, I will touch on trade secret, which Dr. Sheetal has also, touched upon earlier. Why is trade secret so important as a startup? Now, you may have something which is totally unique to your business, unique to your, the product or maybe the service that you're providing. So, and why it is important to protect it. What happens? We see that like trademark and copyright, there are statutory laws, but for trade secret as such, there is no statutory law in India so far. So it's very important, if you think that there is something unique which is attached to your product or the services that you're providing, to protect it by means of trade secret. And this protection is when you don't disclose that unique thing among your other employees or other members with whom you are working. Now, to move up to the definition of startup, this has also been touched upon by Dr. Sheetal. I would just like to add here is that startup, it is an entity which is recognized by DPIIT and under the Startup India initiative, as a startup. So if we go to this link, you will see that what will constitute a startup. And you can also register your company or your firm as a startup under the Startup India initiative. And some of the criteria is that you should not be incorporated, or your date of incorporation should not be like more than 10 years, and the annual turnover for any financial year should be less than 100 crores. And a very important thing is that the startup should be working towards innovation, towards development of new products or new services, and those products or services should be capable of commercializing. You should be able to commercialize your products. And entity definition is there. Like I said, it's a private limited company, can be considered as a startup, a registered partnership firm, or a limited liability partnership. But one thing we have to keep in mind that such entity should not be formed by splitting up of a business which is already in existence. Now, under the Startup India initiative, there are certain benefits that a startup is provided in respect of IP. So those are basically reduction in official fee, fast track of certain IP applications, and there's also some tax benefits which are associated or which are connected with startups. Now, reduction in official fee from the trademark perspective, what I can say that it is half of what is in respect of a company, and I will touch up on that in my later slides. Now, these are the different forms of an intellectual property, like Dr. Sheetal, Ravi, as well as Madhu has already touched upon. Now, you may have a single product and you need to build up on your IP. So how do you do upon that? Now, these are certain things. So if you see that robot is, the functionality of the robot will be protected as a patent. Now, the aesthetic look, the look and feel of the thing, it comes under designs. Now, when we talk of trademarks, it is the brand name of the robot. Like I said, earlier, your trademark should be distinctive. It should not describe your product. So if you think that it's a robot and I'm going to put it as a robo, then very likely you will be getting a refusal order from the trademark registry. And for copyright is the underlying code, the source code, underlying code that is there will help you the copyright respect of your IP. Now, IPR, like we have touched upon earlier, why is it important in a startup scenario, and why it is important to identify your IP? Like from my previous slide, what you note, you may have a single product, but there are different IPs attached to it. and it is very important to identify those IPs and protect it in in the different fields. So you can protect it as a patent, you can protect it as a trademark, you can protect it through copyright, you can protect it through designs. And once you identify the IP, before you start the process of protecting, it is very important to assess the risk that is involved. Now, how do we assess that risk which is involved? You can conduct a trademark search, a patentability search. These searches will help you to analyze, or you will be able to see where you stand in case there is an infringement action or a passing of action initiated against you. Slides, which I'm going to talk in details. And the next point is protecting IP. Now, it is very important to protect IP, like I said, through different IPR rights or the laws that is available in India. So how you can protect is like trademark for names, for signs, for devices. And these names, signs, devices, it should be graphically represented, and it should be, like I said, it should be able to distinguish your product from the others which is already there. Another thing is that which we have to keep in mind is that IP is territorial in nature. So you need to identify the relevant markets where you will be conducting your business, or which is important for your business. And thereafter, you need to go and file your IP in those jurisdictions. So if you just file in India, the protection is restricted to India. Something, from a startup perspective, you may think that, there's too much of cost involved. Yes, there is little bit of cost involved, but there are also ways and, different mediums through which you can apply for your IP in different jurisdictions through a single application. So one is your domestic application, which you can file in India, and the other is an international application for trademarks, which you can file through the Madrid application. So the Madrid Protocol, now India is a signatory to the Madrid Protocol, and under the Madrid Protocol, there are more than 95 countries who are signatory and who have acceded to the Madrid Protocol. So through one application, basically, you can designate all the different countries in different jurisdictions of the world. But to go through the Madrid route, you have to keep in mind that you need to have a domestic application or a domestic registration for trademark. Now, there's certain IP policies that you have to keep in place as a startup, which is very important. So if you see, when you are a startup, you may be, working with a lot of different entities. And like I said, when you are inventing anything, or when you have a product or a process in place or an invention in place, so there are a lot of things which is new, and you would not want those information to be disclosed, or to be taken away from you by your employees, or people whom you're working with. So in that case, it is very important as a startup to have certain agreements in place with your employees, as well as when you're working with any third party. It is very important that you have these agreements in place. And when I say agreements, you have to make sure that you have IP clauses, specific IP clauses in those agreements. So when you have an IP clause, it should clearly state with whom the IP rights vest, who will have the right to file for the IP, who will be the owner of the IP in place. And when I also say confidentiality agreement, it means that whatever confidential information is shared among your employees or with any third party, they should not be shared, other than for the reason for which the work is being done. And they need to be bound by such confidentiality agreement. it's very important we
Sudeshna, your voice is breaking. I guess you have some issue.
competitor.
Sudeshna, at least I can't hear you anymore. It's your voice is breaking a lot.
Uh,
I think
can you hear me now?
this is also potentially reminding me.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, but unfortunately, I think we'll have. Yes, Sudeshna, we can see, we can hear you, but we have got only 2 minutes left
Can
to
you
close
hear
this
me?
session, actually, unfortunately, because Sudeshna, we can hear you, but unfortunately, we'll have to close the session because we have only until 12:10.
Okay, so I'll
After
just
this,
quickly
it's
go
the
through
45
the.
minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
Either what we can do is that we have got couple of minutes left. Either we pick up the questions because your bandwidth is not working. It's all very hazy.
My
Hello,
request
can you
is
hear us?
stop
Yes.
your camera.
Maybe Sudeshna can off a video and then she can take up the questions that we may have. Yeah.
Yes. So I'll just quickly read up the questions with your permission.
So
Let me. Sudesha, we are just picking up on questions, and maybe in the next subsequent conference that we have, we'll invite you again so that you can cover up on the rest of your slides if that is okay. So we have got only 1 minute left. So this says that many a times a product uses a combination of various other technologies and services for creating a new unique product. How do we safeguard our interest through IP way? I think
fine with me, Sheetal.
All right. So I think the question is on the complex products where it's combination of so many technologies that where IP may belong to someone else. Best is to find out who is the owner of the IP, proactively try to seek out license. Since we don't know which product are you talking about, but most of the times there are IP pools where all these patentees pool their patents so that there is one-stop shop where you can go and ask for a license. You don't have to run around pillar to post to find out and take a license from everyone, but taking proactive license is always a good idea. You can definitely protect it because if it is a unique product, it shouldn't be a product which is just a combination that does not produce a synergistic result. I mean, it shouldn't be a stapler with, let's say, a nail filer, which both of these are completely working in different way. There is no synergy. If your product, the complex one, has a synergistic result, there is definitely an IP protection you can afford, but you have to also pay up to those whose IP you have used in your multi product component. Next question goes for our panelists. So it says that suppose IP can be valued. Ravi, I think you covered it as the IP as a collateral. Maybe you can try to respond to this.
Sure.
It says suppose IP can be valued. How can such value be positively utilized for capital growth in terms of using it as a collateral for securing loan in non-developed economy?
So see, if you look at the kind of documents that are released by RBI and also by different nationalized banks, there are ways and means to reach out to banking sector and share your recordation of how you have valued your IP, how it is appearing in your balance sheet in terms of expense incurred or your royalty generated or revenue generated. Some of it could be directly attributable to IP, some could be indirectly attributable to the IP. Then, as I said, there are different tools available to measure, quantify it. So their ecosystem is gradually maturing where you can uh, make use of those numbers to further help you grow. So for example, when you reach out to a venture capitalist or a potential investor or even a fund, they generally, if you, as you guys probably know it better than I do, that investors look at two things primarily the most. One is the kind of team that you have built as a startup, and second is the kind of IP that you have as an organization. And if you're able to position it well, showcase it well, I have seen funds putting substantial part of their funding, linking it to the IP that you own. So there are ways and means to do it. Of course, you may need to have a help from some specialist, but there are established mechanisms to leverage the IP that you have. Yeah.
I think what is most important also when you go to a bank, it's like bank is always little skeptical on whether to fund you or not. Unless you've got a clear statistics to prove that, okay, this is my IP, this much is my reputation, this is the whole year's plan in terms of revenue that I'll be generating. So for example, if you're a book author and you've already published it, you know how much revenue you are getting, or you want to be a self-publisher, and you know that this much is your target audience, and if you have a clear statistics to prove to the bank that you'll be able to pay back, then I think it becomes much more easy. Questions such as if you may become a non-performing entity, whether you have a secured revenue generation stream or not, whether you've been able to attain a goodwill or not, all these will play a very important role in securing a loan. So I think we'll end here. Many thanks to Ministry of MSME and all the panelists, also all the attendees. We look forward to meeting you again, and next time we'll change the protocol a bit. We will have less of PPTs, but more of responding to your questions. So do give your questions proactively. Thank you so much and have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.